Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Nicole Ardila, and you're listening to the Regeneration Z podcast, a weekly conversation about issues that Gen Z experience today, in hopes to give a different perspective and open young minds. Today's topic is the effects of social media on Gen Z, and I'm here to discuss it with our guest, Natalie La Roche, a senior at Florida International University, double majoring in journalism and English. Natalie, thanks so much for joining us today. So please introduce yourself a bit more for our listeners.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me. So like you said, I'm a senior at FIU, and I'm majoring in journalism and English because I love to write. And I think through journalism and English, I get to learn more about the world in different ways. I think journalism allows me to learn about kind of the objective truth that everyone is sort of living in society. And English is more introspective and about subjective truths that people experience in their everyday lives.
All right, and you're Venezuelan, correct?
Yes.
Tell us more about your story. When did you get here?
I moved here when I was 7 years old, so that was 2010, so 12 years ago. And I'm pretty Americanized, but still very in touch with my Latin American roots. And I've grown up in the culture, so I wouldn't say I'm any less Latina than anyone else.
No, that's great. So just because our episode is about social media and the effect on our generation, tell me when you started, getting on digital devices. When did you first get on social media?
I think I got my first phone when I was in the 4th grade. And it was like an Android, and I remember at the time Blackberries were really popular, and I really wanted a Blackberry. And my dad had promised me that if I got an A in math, he'd get me a Blackberry, and then he didn't, and I was so upset. But eventually I got this Android phone, and that's when that's when it started. And I think I joined social media a little after getting the phone, but everything had to be approved by my parents.
Yeah.
Any account I made had to be approved by my parents. They followed me on every one, which I think is good when kids, you want your kids to be participating in what their friends are participating in so that they don't feel left out, but with certain oversight, because they're your kid and you want to make sure that they're okay.
No, yeah, of course. My first phone was one of those little pill-sized Nokias that I just used in third grade to contact my parents after school. But it's just kind of weird to think that as kids we fantasize about being adults and having those gadgets. And now I come to wonder why they would sell toys like that. What would be the purpose just to have that?
That's interesting. I think for some reason the first thing that comes to mind is the Spy Kids movies.
Oh, yeah.
My sister and I, my younger sister and I, we would play spy games when we were little, and I remember at one point McDonald's was giving out little spy gadgets, and we would just collect every technological looking device possible to contribute to that game. But I think it has to do with growing up in the rapid rise of technology, and sort of being so curious and fascinated by everything that was going on around us at that time.
I remember when I was little, my best friend and I, our first devices to communicate were walkie-talkies. So they were real Motorola walkie-talkies sold for camping, and then we transitioned to DSIs, which I think were our first devices for us to communicate with friends. There was this chat room, and yeah, we would be able to call our friends on there, which now that I think of is really crazy that we had our own tablets or phones without realizing. And then came the rise of, iPads. I remember I would have an iPad, I would FaceTime my friend, I would set up, the iPad was mine basically, with my own iCloud and everything. And it's so different from the way kids now have their iPads and phones. Because, like you said, my first social media was Vine, and I had it on a Nook, the tablet sold by Barnes and Nobles.
Mm-hmm.
It has no camera, nothing. Like, I remember, it's a core memory thinking of when I asked my dad if I could download Vine. Like, we needed that permission from our parents. Maybe it's a Hispanic culture thing that you feel like you need your parents' approval for everything.
Maybe. I don't know. I hadn't considered that. But that's funny. I wasn't allowed to have Vine. I was allowed to
Really?
be on Instagram, but not on Vine.
Maybe because Instagram was like just
It was
photos.
just photos, and Instagram at the time was very different. It was
Hmm.
just like to what it is now. I mean, it was just like, oh, like I had a coffee today. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like I just got home from school, or like posting a black screen and being like, can anyone tell me what the homework for such and such class
Yeah.
is? But with the iPad thing, I think that's also really interesting. We in my family we got the iPad when it came out, like the first one, and we had one iPad for everyone in the family. It was like
Hmm.
our family device, and my dad had a passcode on it that my sister and I weren't allowed to know. So he would block it when he was done using it, or we'd have to ask permission to use it before we went on it. And even then, like all the apps that were on there were because we asked him to get, and they were all like, like flashlight apps or like
Hmm.
drawing, like whatever was available,
Yeah.
because the apps that we have today didn't exist, and we couldn't foresee that that's what it would become.
I think the way social media has developed definitely has impacted. It's just so weird to call myself Generation Z when the kids today that are 11, 10, 9 are also Generation Z because we grew up so different. Like, I wouldn't say that I grew up with a phone or social media because I first got on social media when I was 14, which is pretty young, but honestly, like my first social media was Vine, Instagram, and Tumblr. That was a big one. And it was just all about taking pictures and the aesthetic and
Yeah,
just, fooling around with your friends. And that's what Vine was for too, like
yeah.
it was humor. But now social media has become really toxic because kids today have so much access to anything around the world, whether it's explicit sexual content, violence, um, politics. Like my best friend's little cousin got on social media when she was really young, like younger than 10, and she doesn't really need parents' approval like we did, She just would. The kids today literally begged their parents to use their phones until they got their own iPhone 12 Pros at 12 years old. It's just really weird to think about that.
I think that the danger to social media and the content that you're exposed to has always been there. Um, like I said, speaking personally, like my parents, my dad especially, was really strict on the content and how we had access to
Hmm.
it. And I think it's because he knew already what was on there. Um, so I think that it's just more easily accessible, but it has always been part of the problem. I think with every kind of new shiny creation that we come up with, something more cynical follows behind.
Yeah, I think the problem is that we grew up with parents who are from Gen X, so probably like late 50s, 60s, maybe early 70s. It's a completely different generation from the millennials, who are the parents of the little kids in the Gen Z. And from what I've seen, a lot of millennials give into their kids what they want. I'm not really sure why kids today want to be part of social media, want to have phones, why they're getting so addicted so young. Um, but these parents are handing these kids iPads, phones because they want it so bad. And it's a whole parenting psychology thing, but um, these little kids want to be adults so quickly, so early, so young. And I've seen videos everywhere where it's like eighth graders today compared to eighth graders back then. Like, there's such a big difference in the way we act, the way we dress. You see, like, eighth graders back then, when we were watching Hannah Montana, would wear the most conservative outfits, maybe, like, very like a t-shirt on top of a long sleeve with the skirt on
Mm-hmm.
top of jeans.
That was
Like,
me.
yeah. Like there was no skin showing at all. But you compare it with little girls today and they're wearing like crop tops and mini skirts, something that a 20-year-old would wear maybe.
Yeah, I do two things on that. One, I think that kids being on social media doesn't only come from like a parent giving in to giving them the content to it. I think part of it is that it is so easily accessible to everyone that I think kids find out how to be sneaky about it and get on it no matter what their parents say. Second part is that I do think that there is kind of an erasure of childhood happening. That in between like child and teenager, that tween stage is disappearing. And I talk
Yeah.
about it with my friends all the time because it's concerning, because that is a really expressive period of time where you you're exploring a lot of who you feel you are, who you think you're going to be. And I think it's a vital part of growing up. And to erase that and to just go straight from childhood to being a teenager, pretty much being grown up, I think is really scary. And I would be interested in finding out what the long-term effects of that are going to be.
Yeah.
I know that the concept of childhood didn't really become a thing until medieval ages, where it was kind of like kids would start working once their bodies were able to perform manual labor. And it wasn't until someone came along and were like, wait, hold on, this isn't right. And now it's become such an integral part of our society that I can't imagine going back to a society or a civilization that doesn't have that childhood.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just that childhood will look different. Maybe, a lot of kids that are on iPads are on it not because they're on social media. I'm talking about like 5 to like 8-year-olds. Maybe they're not necessarily on social media, but they're using it for their Paw Patrol or like some kids games,
Yeah.
And again, I'm interested to see in what the long-term effects of that would be, and how this version of childhood is going to impact future adults.
No, I definitely agree when you said that our kids are basically losing their childhood, probably losing their innocence really quickly as well. There's just so much access to everything once you grasp a phone or an iPad. But let's get into social media in people our age, older generation Z. I feel like there's a pressure when you're not posting on social media, and a lot of people, well, first, it can be two things. One is if you're not posting like as an activist. It's what I call social media activism when there's probably like a political problem going on, a social issue going on, and a lot of people decide not to speak on it, not to repost anything. A lot of celebrities too, they just, they're neutral, they don't want to get into politics or anything like that. And I see a lot of comments saying, why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you talking about what's going on in Iran? Why aren't you talking about what's going on in Detroit? Like so many issues that people are being pressured to talk about, but they're probably not the fit person to talk about it. So what do you think about this activism on social media? Can it be a really negative thing or positive thing?
I think it can be both. I think social media has been really cool in giving power to a lot of people that would otherwise not have power or would not have the means to share what their experiences are. Like, imagine everything that's happening in Iran right now without social media, and or Russia and Ukraine conflict, everything that's happening and what they're able to put into the world because of social media. So I think it's very powerful in that way. Also, I think there is a negative aspect to it in what you talk about when people don't post about it. I think it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, social media can be very representative of what the reality of a situation is, like in Russia and Ukraine, for example. I also think that it can be the furthest thing from an actual representation of the truth, especially with like Photoshop and the access to that. But when people don't post about activism or social issues on Instagram, I don't think it should be taken as a bad sign or a bad look from the person that isn't posting, because you don't know about what learning they're doing behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Maybe they just feel like that they have to educate themselves better before they post about it. And I think that's more admirable than posting to social media just because everyone is doing it and just because you want to save face and look like you care about the topic.
That's exactly what I believe.
When really you don't, and you're doing it just because everyone else is doing it, and that does more harm than good. So I think, yeah.
Honestly, like when I'm on Instagram and I'm swiping through stories and I see the same post like probably every 2 or 3 posts, like it kind of ticks me off. Because I ask myself, are these people really educated on the issue? Do they really care? Or are they just trying to seem like they do? Yeah, like it just kind of frustrates me because, you know, it takes a lot to learn about a cultural thing, a social thing, a political thing than just what you see on social media. Because I don't know if you know, but your algorithm on social media is based on what you read, what you watch. So if you usually lean towards a biased, um, you know, article or network or whatever, your social media will show you that too, and I'll show
Yeah.
you the other side or a more extreme side as well. And it could show you posts that are too emotional and not informational. I see a lot of like protests, social media users, and they're just like yelling. And I feel like if you're trying to get like a message across, that's not the way to do it. And I feel like that can just spread like unreliable information, and it could divide people instead of bringing people together to inform them on the issue.
I agree and disagree because, like I was saying earlier, people may be posting just to save face and to make it seem that they're updated about whatever's going on, but they're not. That said, at the end of the day, they're still posting about it. So they're still sending a message across, and there's power in numbers. So even if they themselves don't know anything about it, but then they post it, and one of their followers sees it and they're really interested by it, maybe then they will look at and read more into it. So there's no one clear-cut answer on how it should be handled or whether it's strictly positive or strictly negative. But these are good conversations to have on how to be more mindful users on social media. And what you were saying about confirmation bias is completely true. And that's something that, another way in which people have to be mindful about what they're reading and what they're exposed to.
Yeah, no, I agree. In journalism, you learn about media literacy, and I feel like it's something that everyone should get into.
I agree.
And honestly, like before I got into journalism, I didn't even know what that was, but I feel like it's so important in this day and age that everyone is careful about what information they're learning, reading, watching, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, it comes to the quote where if you don't post, you're part of the problem. And I just feel like social media is not always the place where people want to, discuss a matter.
I think that social media gives a lot of power to the voiceless. And it's a great tool to lift people up and to get information out there. Again, we come back to the issue of, well, you have to be smart about what information you're consuming and whether you can trust the source that you're getting it from. But yeah, I think it's both sides of the argument are right. And there needs to be a way to bridge that gap to get to a neutral and sort of kind of societal understanding of what to do moving forward.
But would you say if someone doesn't want to spread a message, post, or just even acknowledge it, would you say that they're part of the problem, as people say?
No, I wouldn't say that because, again, I don't think social media always shows the full truth. And social media can be very carefully curated to show parts of yourself and to hide parts of yourself you don't want other people to see. So if you don't post about it, I don't think it makes you a bad person because, again, you could be doing the behind the scenes work and just not posting it to social media. Just like, I don't know, you could be learning to cook and not posting it to social media. But if you feel empowered and you feel like you're doing a good job by posting to social media, then that's great, and no one should take that away from you. It comes to personal choices as to what you think is the best journey or route for you to be an active member of society through. If you feel that you're more useful in doing your own behind the scenes work, great. If you feel you're more useful in posting to social media, also great. So
that kind of leads to my second point of what it means of the pressure of not posting to social media, is ghosts. So I know a lot of people that I probably went to high school with. I still follow them on Instagram, but you don't see their posts like at all. And you're just like, wow, like I wonder what this person's up to. Like she just went off the radar or something. And a lot of people feel pressured to post because or else they don't have a life. And I feel like we forget that we should have a life behind closed doors and not everything has to be out there. But you feel like you need people to know what's going on or else it's going to affect your image as well.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that posts like everything to social media.
Low-key same, just a little bit.
Like, you know me, I like to post like what my outfit for the day was. I like to post like whatever song I'm listening to, or like if my dog looks extremely cute in the moment, I'll post that to my Instagram stories. However, like I'll say personally, I'm also a private social media user, which gives me control over who can access my information. So that makes me feel a lot safer on the internet.
Okay.
But with people like being ghosts, I mean, again, I think it's whatever feels right to a person. Like, if you don't want to post on social media, but you want to know what other people are up to, that's kind of like, you know, maybe you should put in to get back, but like, it's not that deep, you know? Like, it's whatever.
Give us content.
Like, it's whatever. So I think it's a lot of social media comes down to personal choice. And however you want to represent yourself on there. And I feel like that's my answer as well when people talk about how toxic social media is, which I completely agree, especially to young women in body dysmorphia and anxiety and depression and comparing your lives. But also know you have power to redirect what comes up on your social media. You can block content, or on Instagram you have the power to follow and unfollow. So maybe I don't know, if you want to learn more about goats or yoga or goat yoga, then you follow more accounts on that. And you can be, again, mindful about what you're consuming.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that they have the power to control what they see on social media. They just kind of go along. And I find myself really tired sometimes. Like, Instagram isn't what it used to be because I feel like since Instagram is trying to be everything, and it's like how people say, like a niche, you know, if you do everything, you're doing nothing. And since Instagram tries to be Snapchat, tries to be TikTok, tries to be real, maybe it's a shopping center as well. I just feel like it gets so boring because it doesn't have a niche anymore. Like, I don't go to Instagram for a specific thing, and I just find myself scrolling, and the fact that it has no end is kind of boring because then I find myself going to another app. I just go out of Instagram, I go to TikTok. The scrolling continues. It's like you need the satisfaction, and it's like mindless satisfaction. It wastes your time. I find out I have like 5 hours average on my screen.
Or for me, it's even like I'm like mindfully doom scrolling in that like, which sounds like they cancel each other out, but it's like I'll be watching a TikTok and I'd be like, I've watched way too many now. I need to get off, and then I don't, and I'm like, oh, well, on to the next. And it's like, this one will be the last, and then it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because, I don't know, like, social media kind of ruined the act of doing nothing. Because you might, let's say someone texts you, you're like, what are you doing? You're like, oh, nothing, like, on my phone. No, that's not nothing. You're on your phone. I dare you to, put your phone down and look at the roof. In 5 seconds, you're going to grab your phone subconsciously and start scrolling again. Because sometimes I tap on my phone to check the time. I open it, I do whatever, and I don't even know what time it is because I didn't look.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just crazy how we do things so naturally. And what I was going to say about comparing, like, your life with others is that you see those videos on Instagram, or like that girl who wakes up at 6 in the morning, does her yoga, reads, lights a candle, does her green smoothie, goes to work on her aesthetic MacBook Pro.
The it girl.
In front of the skyline. And it's just, it gets a little sad.
2 things. So I think social media, I agree, thrives off of making the user compare themselves to whatever content they're consuming, which is detrimental to mental health. And it implies that there's only one right way to exist. Mm-hmm. You're only valid if you do this, you do this, you do that, you look like this, you wear this, and you do that. And it's like, well, for one, like, I can't do all of that because I don't have that same, whether it be stamina, wealth, access to resources, whatever. That's on one hand. On the other hand, maybe I just don't want to, know? But then you see getting the person that posted that content all of this praise for their lifestyle, and it's like, it makes you feel bad for yourself about maybe I should be doing that too. On the other hand, maybe the creator really just loves showing what their life is like. Yeah. And that's also, like, who are we to judge for that? So it's very nuanced and there's no right answer to it. But it's just, there's a problem and the solution isn't straight.
It's like, what do we do?
Yeah, it's just kind of there and not knowing how to treat it.
Yeah, I feel like there's no end to this in sight right now. Because, social media is kind of getting worse. There's more apps coming. I thought, like, after Instagram and TikTok, like, nothing's gonna beat it. But now we have Be Real, which kind of makes it worse because, like, it forces you to... Because people think you have to be real, but honestly, like, it forces you to make it look like you're having fun. Make it look like you're doing something.
And isn't it a bigger intrusion to your personal life and private life than any of the other apps, I feel like? Which is what we were just talking about. Like, you have to constantly be posting things and, like, you can't keep anything to yourself anymore. Be real. It just further feeds into that problem. So I love that they're, like, I find it funny that their mission is to, like, make social media, like, real again or honest. But is it helping?
I think they should make it stricter. Like, you have to post at that moment or else you can't. Because, like, the fact that it gives you the opportunity to, like, take it again or take it later just kind of beats the purpose of it.
Yeah, it does. But also, like, again, it's social media, so you wouldn't want to misrepresent yourself on there.
Exactly.
Because the internet's scary. Yeah. And whatever's out there is out there. Yeah. You can't take it back.
No, that's the thing. And I guess, like, one positive thing I can say about social media is how connected you are with everyone. I think we were talking about this last week, where, like, I just randomly thought, like, wow, like, I have people from elementary, middle school, high school still on social media, and it's kind of crazy to see, like, what they're doing to this day. Because, like, we see our parents, for example, they lose contact with their old friends, but I don't think that will ever happen with us. I mean, we may not keep talking, but we still have them on social media, so if we want to contact them, we can.
But that raises an interesting question then. Is our connection on social media really of quality?
No, not at all.
Then why is it still there? It's like lingering on to something that maybe we should let go of to some extent. But I don't know if you can argue that it's really that deep, but it is something to compare. Um, I also have people that I don't talk to anymore, but we still keep tabs on each other, I suppose, by following each other on social media. But again, I think every generation is faced with some sort of new technology that they have to adapt to, and this is ours. Especially because we were kind of the guinea pigs of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, younger Gen Z isn't, they know what they're doing, pretty much. We were the curveball, and we were the ones posting awkwardly in our tween phase about our flower crowns, and now it's like, well, you have to curate the most absolutely perfect picture of yourself in order to get the most likes possible or whatever. Which also, like, makes me think now of the Instagram photo dump, which is kind of...
Stop. What are you gonna say? Because I love them.
No, I love them too, but it's also, on one hand, you can argue that it is defying the perfectionism of social media. On the other hand, you can argue that it's further perpetuating it because you're still choosing the best pictures you think possible for that dump.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives the sense like, oh wow, like it's just so careless, so free, like it's just like a dump of what you did last month. But really, like you're choosing the highlights of whatever
Exactly.
you did, whether it's like a vacation, a week, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what social media is. It's a fake image of who you really are. I mean, I'm not gonna speak for everyone. I'm not gonna say you're being fake, but like, yeah, that's another thing that I think social media is like a magazine where like, in a magazine you would see what are the trends now, but social media like is not only showing you what are the trends, but it has different trends. I don't know if I'm explaining myself right, but like in 2014, 2015, it was like a selfie trend, and yeah, like people still take selfies, but at the same day, like at the same time, you don't see people post selfies anymore. Like it's kind of dead. You don't see mirror selfies anymore. um People barely use like filters anymore. I guess like we were saying, I guess the new trend would be photo dumps, and I kind of wonder like how these trends come into place on social media.
Um, I have a lot to say about that because it's really interesting. Yes, social media is now the new curator for trends, whereas like before you had to pick up or buy a magazine to see what was going to be in style that season. I think social media is an indicator for that now. And there's content creators that dedicate their entire pages to what they think the trends for next season will be. And they're usually right, at least the ones that I see. However, coming back to the power of social media, I think it's also kind of really cool because it takes away, trends and fashion trends were reserved for models and for the higher ups in the world, for celebrities, and they were the ones dictating what the rest of us wanted to do and wanted to follow. And to an extent, they still do. I know right now that it's like, are you a Matilda minion or a Bella bot with like fashion icons? But at the same time, social media claimed that power back to regular people. And it's like, I think this is good, so I'm going to start wearing it and posting it. And then people pick up on that, and so on and so forth.
Which is what an influencer is, like
Yeah.
now anyone has the power to create trends.
Yeah.
Instead of just rich celebrities,
Yep.
models.
Yep. I know, like, I'm a fan of Cindy Crawford. And I remember I was watching an interview with her once, and I'm going to restart. I was watching an interview with Cindy Crawford one time, and she said that everyone is a model now because everyone has a phone easily accessible to them. Anyone can take out their phone and take a selfie or ask a friend to take a picture, and you're modeling. And maybe you're not going to be put on like the cover of Vogue magazine or in a catalog, but you're still kind of training yourself in a way to look your best at all times possible. And I think that is incremented by the kind of, how do I say this? the surveillance factor of social media now and of technology, where it's like we've talked about it, like how many pictures am I in the back of, you know? But I'll be on social media and it'll be someone recording an incident that happened from across the street, and it's two private people who don't know they're being filmed, who don't know they're on TikTok or Instagram or Vine at the time or whatever.
That happened to me.
Yeah. And now someone's profiting off of that. Maybe not on money, but on likes, on views, on fame, you know? And I think that's a really, really big issue. I'm personally terrified by this type of surveillance in everyday life, where you have to think about, oh my God, how do I look? Oh my God, what am I saying? Oh my God, is this gonna affect me in some unknown way, you know? So that issue is gaining popularity. That conversation is gaining popularity, which I think is really good because it's important. We're intruding into people's lives through social media.
No, that's an interesting point that you make, but I kind of want to go back to trends because what's funny is that, you know, in the 90s, you would really see, or 90s and early 2000s, you would see that the ideal beauty standard was very skinny or fit women with like zero curves, kind of what people would call today flat. And now the trend is to look voluptuous, curvy, you know, big breasts, big booty. And, you know, it kind of creates an insecurity on girls who are still growing up and they don't look like that. And the girls who, you know, have access to social media and you're just surrounded by people who are, you know, reconstructing their faces, their bodies. I mean, I see 14-year-old girls who rose to fame, became an influencer, and now they have the money to get a BBL, Brazilian butt lift, so young. And I ask myself, like, what could be the reason other than what you see on social media?
Yeah. I think it's extremely sad because women's bodies and how they choose to present themselves are always treated as trends. And, you know, and when Marilyn Monroe was alive and she was the icon of beauty and femininity, it was her body type that was in. Curvy, you know, not stick thin. And then we get to the 90s and it's that heroine chic of Kate Moss. And now back again to kind of the voluptuous type. No one wins. I think every woman alive still has insecurities about their bodies, no matter what is in at the moment. Because I think even if it's in to be skinny, skinny girls will have insecurities. If thicker girls, if being thick is in, then thicker girls will still have insecurities because women are always pinned to compare each other. And whatever you have that I don't have, I'm supposed to want. And that's how the plastic surgery industry makes profit. And I'm not opposed to plastic surgery. I think that if it's a way for you to feel better about yourself, then who am I to judge? And also, like, why would I have an opinion on what you do with your body, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely know what you're saying. It's just that I think there's limits when it comes to like how young you are, and also like the reason why. Obviously, like everyone's entitled to their own decisions and everything, but when it comes to like really young girls saying like, I see on TikTok all the time where like it's not little girls, but like very young girls who are saying like, wow, like I wish I had your nose, or when it's a video of like someone who got plastic surgery, like, who's your doctor? Why you need to go there? How much was it?
Also, I don't think that we're separate from that issue. Like when we were on social media and when we were younger, um, I think, God, I remember when I was in middle school and the list of insecurities I had was longer than it is now at 20 years old because you don't have one, we were the guinea pigs of social media, and I think it wasn't as easy to mitigate factors and to know when to back off. Two, um, young girls are impressionable. Um, and it's intensified by social media, like you're saying. I can't remember what video or interview I saw this in, but it was a female celebrity talking about how they think that not social media, plastic surgery is a way to make everyone look the same. And I find that really sad.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
It's sad
It
because
sounds like
then
a dystopia.
yeah, because then it's so nuanced. I don't know where I want to begin, but it's if there's a certain thing that's trending, like big lips, full lips, and then everyone wants to get full lips, but then that means that everyone will have the same lips, and so we start to morph into each other. Then it's the tiny, skinny, Western standard nose. Then everyone will want that nose. And then suddenly, what unique features are we left with, But also, I feel like it's so difficult to blame someone for wanting to fit in. How do you blame someone for wanting to fit in when it makes life so much easier for you? When maybe you feel that people are treating you with more respect, because it happens. People treat you differently depending on how you look. Or if you feel better about yourself, then how can you blame someone for that? So it breaks my heart. And again, I don't know what the solution is.
No, there really is no solution, because not only is it effect from social media, but going back to when you said like we're all gonna look the same, like once you said that, I instantly thought of like living here in Miami, like sometimes so many girls look the same, like the same exact features, and you can tell when someone has plastic surgery, like it can be really obvious. But when we're talking about the different eras and the different beauty standards, um, it started when, I think it was like the Kardashians who started, getting plastic surgery, and, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, even Kourtney Kardashian got breast implants. And Kourtney actually said that she regretted it. Um, and you see now that the Kardashians look much different than what they looked like 6 years ago. I think they got their implants removed because they probably found out, you know, it's not the standard anymore to have a BBL, to look more natural, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there's no better example than the Kardashian family when it comes to setting trends in beauty for women. They really do have a monopoly on it, and it's really sad. I think social media, in a way, gives the power to fight back against it, or it gives them more power, depending on how you use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, also brings up the question of like access you have to certain procedures. The Kardashians have all the money in the world, and they could get whatever they want or get it reversed whenever they want. The average person doesn't.
Yeah.
So then the average person has to
Get
live
procedures.
or get botched procedures or live with the inability to get those procedures done. And, maybe it takes a really big toll on them because they don't fit in the beauty standard. There's other amazing ways to work through it, of course, but it's just the power imbalance in the world, especially in beauty for women, is something that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. No, there's just like, before like I bring into my next point, I just want to mention like the extreme rise we saw in plastic surgery because according to the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, um, last year 2021, 79% of facial plastic surgeons saw patients seeking, an improved appearance, and that's compared to only 16% from the previous year in 2020.
Wow.
So it went from 16% of surgeons to 79%.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it's not only because of social media, but it's because during the pandemic we were on Zoom, right? So everybody's so hyper fixated, hyper aware of what they look like. And, they start noting like features they don't like, features that aren't like, you know, the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something interesting. Now that you brought up that statistic, do you know what the origin of plastic surgery is?
No.
World War One,
Okay.
when soldiers were coming back from the war, and this was the first war that we had really advanced artillery for, really advanced weaponry for, and the destruction that it was doing and causing was unimaginable to us. And the injuries it was causing were much more severe than anything we had seen before. So soldiers were coming back really deformed.
Mm-hmm.
Their faces, part of their cheek missing or something. So when soldiers started coming home, the medical field had a really rapid advancement in trying to get these people to look normal again,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to move throughout the world in a way that they felt confident in. Um, and that's when plastic surgery became a thing. And then it developed into, or it made its way into Hollywood, into old Hollywood, and the alteration and altering a women's appearance for the screen. But when you think about it, like the beginning of plastic surgery was a very noble cause.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that it still applies in many areas today, but it has developed into something far more different than when it began as.
Yeah. When it comes to plastic surgery, like we said before, I just um like everyone should just embrace like how they look like and appreciate and like, admire their own unique features and especially their own ethnicity. I think that's so important. Um but something I was going to say was that like social media gives an image to ethnicities as well because you know, it gives the image that Hispanic or Latina women are usually curvy, with big breasts, a big butt, like Sofia Vergara, and it creates this standard of Hispanic women. And when there's a very skinny woman, people are like, oh, but like you're Hispanic, like aren't Hispanics are really like curvy and whatever, and it makes you feel bad. And I say it because it's happened to me before. Like you feel like a identity crisis at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've had that feeling as well, being Latina and not fitting what other people's perception of what Latina women are. Um, I think my response to that is just kind of like, it's like there's diversity everywhere. And then it's just up to people to become educated on the diversity in the world.
Learn about genetics.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks that like there's one way a woman should be and one way a Latina woman should be, or all these different perceptions that we have of different groups of people. There's no right way to exist in the world. And when we pigeonhole ourselves into the one right way someone should be, we're going to all end up looking the same, acting the same, and we're going to be living very boring lives. Because difference and diversity is what makes life so interesting and enriching and worth learning about. Because someone that's really like exactly the same as me, what am I going to learn from them? Someone that has maybe could teach me a little bit about life from a different point of view, that's someone I want to spend hours talking to.
No, I really admire, like, just different features. Like, when someone has bigger, like, nose, or, like, Central American noses. Like, these are features that a lot of people are insecure about.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I think it's beautiful because you look different, and I can tell where you're from and not have to, like, guess, like, so many other European or Western.
I would hesitate to say tell where you're from, because personally I have a very ethnic nose that you wouldn't associate with being from Venezuela or Latin America. But yeah, like, especially in that example.
But I wouldn't assume you're from California.
No, I know. But with that particular example, that really resonates with me, because I know I have an ethnic nose. And I love my nose.
Thank God, because I love it too.
Thank you. I love my nose, and I feel like it ties me so much to my ancestry, and to the people that came before me. But the amount, and it's like, I know it's a focal point for other people, because especially, like, guys have made comments on my nose, and it's never, like, in a bad way. But it does get me thinking, like, you're perceiving me a little different.
Yeah.
Because I look a little different than, like, what you think the standard is. So it's interesting to think about. I'm never offended by it. Yeah. Also because, like, if I were insecure by it, then maybe I'd take it differently. But since I love my nose, I'm like, yeah, I love it too.
No, it's so pretty. But, like, yeah, it's just like social media has so many different factors and so many different effects on our generation, whether it's body image, insecurities, addiction, which, it causes health problems. We lose sleep because of, like, blue light. It drives us crazy because, like, when you get a notification or a like or whatever, it releases, like, feel-good hormones, like oxytocin, dopamine, and other endorphins. So, like, it's just kind of crazy, like, all the things that we're being affected by something we love. And it's in the way where, like, it's in the matter in our hands, but at the same time, it
escapes us.
Yeah,
it's so freaking, like, I feel so helpless, but at the same time, I feel like it's in my power to completely change it.
Because you see people who are not on social media, or you see people are detoxing from social media. They take a break and they share how, like, better they feel or whatever. Like, I wish I could be that person not on social media, but unfortunately my career depends on internet. That's my excuse.
Yeah. I think, we love it, but it's killing us. It's another vice, vice that humanity's faced with. And we're going to have to learn how to deal with it, and and I don't mean deal with it as in, like, let it exist and, like, ignore the problem. I mean deal with it as in, like, find a solution for it, because this will impact us long term, if it already isn't. And I'm sure there's solutions that we haven't thought of yet. And I'm interested to see what those will be.
Or a lot of us don't want to accept it either.
That it's a problem?
Yeah, or that we have a problem, like, individually.
Yeah, that's true. Turn a blind eye to whatever your own flaws are with it. Yeah, I agree. I also think that some of us know the flaw and choose to not do anything about it. Last week I was going to bed at, like, 1 a.m. Just because I was doom scrolling.
Yeah.
And having to wake up early the next day, which was I fully aware that I knew the damage I was causing? Yes, I did.
But it's so hard to stop.
Yeah, I don't know. And what I tell myself is that I'm so, like, intellectually engaged throughout the whole day. We're, like, doing homework at work, things that require a lot of critical thinking.
Yeah.
That when I get home, sometimes I just want to mindlessly consume something to kind of shut off, because it's tiring for your brain to work on that all day. And then, you get home and you're like, okay, now I get a break from it. And I think social media is a good escape for that. But at the same time, it's damaging.
I tell myself that too. Like, oh, like, I can get a break, like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to rest. But at the same time, I'm always on my phone, even when I'm working. Like, we always take those breaks, scrolling on social media.
Yeah.
Like, even when someone's talking to you, you're probably scrolling on social media. Or when you go to the bathroom, you're on social media.
It comes back to what you were saying about, like, we're never doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, like, my 4th grade teacher said that to us,
Mm-hmm.
to his class. You're never not doing something because you're either always sleeping or breathing or resting or whatever it is, you're always doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with social media, it's the same. We look to it as like a way to shut off, but really it's just a way to keep us going. But I think that's a symptom of how overstimulated we are because of it. I think that social media has really propelled our stimulation, in that our, what's the word? Attention span always has to be peaked or satisfied, and we never want to be away from doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the nature of humans as well. There's people that are workaholics that would rather be working all the time than taking a break to be on social media. But again, it comes down to being stimulated all the time, and whichever way you choose to be stimulated.
Yeah, I think when you said about the attention span, like, that's a problem I'm having, because, I never thought I had this issue until, like, you have a professor assign you a video to watch, and the video is like 5, 6, or like 8 minutes long. And honestly, like, I find myself saying, 8 minutes? Like, that's nothing. But I feel like it's so long.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's terrifying, because, I find myself forgetting things that someone told me that I should have really been, or even as a journalist, like, when you're interviewing someone, and you should be listening to what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I catch myself zoning out.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty.
I speed up videos on YouTube.
Or the voice messages.
Oh, voice message. But also, like, if I were, like, I watch a lot of book review videos. Mm-hmm. Those I can watch normal speed because it's something I'm interested by. But if it's something like a class assignment and I have a million other things to do that day, then let's pick up the pace here, So it depends as well, like, what your purpose for it is. But again, it's about being mindful about it.
No, yeah. So yeah, like, social media not only, like, affects our generation, but even millennials, even our parents. Like, we're all getting addicted. I think we're all doomed, to be honest. But
really?
Yeah, I think we're doomed.
Oh man.
I really hope we don't turn into, like, mindless zombies one day and just, forget how to think.
I go back and forth with it. Sometimes I'm overcome by existential dread, not only with social media, but with everything happening in the world and all the threats to our everyday safety. That it's like, great, whatever, the world is doomed, I can do nothing about it, so be it. Other days, like right now, I feel really empowered about and hopeful in humanity, and feeling like we can still correct our wrongs, whether it be through social media or whatever other challenge or an obstacle that comes our way.
I feel like the more aware we are of our own problems, that's when we'll get to solutions. And
absolutely.
I just hope people know that you always have the power of your own mind to stop yourself. I know it's hard, and I would be a hypocrite to say this, but we can stop ourselves from, getting addicted, comparing ourselves, or just feeling compelled to post and show our lives. But yeah, this was a great discussion, Natalie. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. But yeah, you can check out our next episode. It will come out soon. And thanks for tuning in, guys.